Welcome to Ren Behind the Practice. I'm Sophie Campisi. I'm a holistic business strategist and startup expert, and I spend a lot of my time in conversation with practitioners, coaches, and healers about the behind the scenes of their businesses. What I started noticing is that some of the most honest, important conversations about building a practice were happening quietly, one-on-one, behind the scenes, and often in isolation. Most practitioners are incredibly skilled at the work they do with their clients, but very few of us were ever taught or trained in how to build a successful startup business. And suddenly we've been left to figure it out on our own. This podcast exists to bring those conversations forward, the dreams, the uncertainty, the highs and lows, the recalibrations, and the messy middle. My hope is that by normalizing these conversations, we can soften the stigma, feel less alone, and start closing the gaps together. Today's guest is Dawn Durocher. Dawn is a functional holistic foot care technician who helps translate what your feet are telling you. Dawn, it is so great to have you here. Thank you for showing up and having this conversation with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Before we look behind the scenes today, can you share with us a little bit more about the work that you do with your clients?
Sure. So I'm a little bit of different facets of who I am, but I am legally a nail technician. So I do pedicures, manicures, more so feet. But then I went for further training and became more specialized in diabetic foot care, immune compromised foot care. So I work a lot in assisted living homes, private homes that can't get out. People would be surprised how many can't. And I also have a practice in Rochester, New Hampshire. So that's the first part of who I am. And then I also, through lots of letters after my name that don't really matter. Basically, when I say I help translate what your body is telling you from your overall wellness, is based on the mind, the body, and the soul, as in soul, the foot connection. And that's what I really coach about as well.
So, is the main structure of your business model a one-on-one model where you're working with people one-on-one, they're hiring you, and it's like that? Or do you do other types of work?
So, yes. So, one on one, when I'm physically working or helping them understand their gait or what may be their body may be telling them based on their feet up, is usually one on one. However, I'm currently transitioning into, because I've helped people online as well, they can get me videos and things like that. So I'm transitioning into the coaching world, to the online world, after being pretty much a service-based industry. People are like, Dawn, you really need to get your message out there. Like, this needs to be more than just a one-on-one thing. So I'm currently in that process. But yes, typically for the past over 20 years has been a one-on-one situation.
Really interesting. We have a lot more to talk about, and I'll ask you more, but I'm assuming, or I know that transition it's not black and white. It can be not just difficult. It's like comparing apples to oranges when you have a generally brick and mortar in-person practice running and then transitioning to the online. It's so different, and it can catch people off guard sometimes because of something I talk about a lot, and we might end up talking about this more. This kind of like weird, I think, social media driven collective dialogue that anyone can do a business and it's so easy and DIY everything and you can make 20K months in 7 days. And no, it's such misleading dialogue. And the reality is it's so difficult to run a successful online business. Not difficult, hard as in impossible, but it's hard. And it takes understanding the process and some of the stuff that most people are missing, and the stuff that I do about startup. You enter true startup land generally when you're trying to start an online practice and get into the online coaching world. But we'll talk more about that. When you look ahead to the next 6 to 12 months, what goals do you have for your work and for your business?
That kind of ties into what you just said, if I can comment on that real quick, because it is like starting all over. I've been in the service industry, a brick and mortar, or traveling to, I'm currently talking to you in an assisted living home right now because of the way our timing worked and I had an emergency client, is very different from getting yourself into the online world. The other thing that I do a lot of is I speak. I just actually was flown out to Jamaica to speak at a women's retreat. When you're speaking about holistic foot care and also taking self-care, to make time for yourself, how to time manage for self-care, and especially around the mind, body, soul connection. But it is truly like, yeah, it's like starting all over in a sense, because it's so different. You said apples and oranges. I would say apples and cucumbers. Like it's totally taking a fruit to a vegetable. Like it's not even in the same, it's still not a fruit. It's just a totally different animal. And so when you ask me what I'm looking for my goals from 6 to 12 months, that was the original question, correct? Okay. It's that. I have been working for years. I mean, doing this in the backside. I mean, here I am physically having feet in my hands, and to have time to do all the back end stuff to get, like you said, the messaging and like all the online stuff and everything together. It's very time consuming. It's very different. It's very different messaging. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that falls into that. You want to be validated. I'm not a doctor, but I know what I know. And so all of that comes into play. But for 6 to 12 months, you just wait and watch, because I got a lot going on. But really, to get into the online space would be my answer to that. But it's a lot.
It's a lot. And thank you for sharing that. It feels like starting over, and it's true. And because of what you said, apples to cucumbers, it's so different. It's like, it's so different. And again, I think part of why I like to acknowledge that for people is because of like, I'm not the rah, as you can tell, I'm kind of just tired of hearing everyone online, and I put stuff out online. So, I contribute to that, but like rah, like, you got this, try this. Like, I'm so fatigued by people not giving very high quality business advice for people trying to do this. I'm frustrated. I'm fatigued by it. And part of that for me is because people like you and the other people that I talk to, your work is so needed. It's so valuable. There's a huge cost if we can't get the work to work. There's a huge cost to people if we can't get the work to work. So I'm so fatigued and tired of just really bad quality business advice and stuff for supporting someone like you, who obviously has a lot to give, a lot to share. You've had a lot of success in one version of your business model. You want to shift, and there's huge value to that. And because of how the online business building landscape is, it's even more challenging than it could be, because it is hard. It's hard, but there's also a lot of people trying, whether they're doing it on purpose or not, just like making it seem like you should already have it figured out.
Yeah.
And you're behind. And if you don't have it figured out, you're doing something wrong, and it's not true. People are missing the distinctions. People are missing, all of the work that I do. One of the main things, people aren't diagnosing people first. They don't have these clear things and just saying, try this. And it's taking people super off track. And yeah, so I hear you. And yeah, I really acknowledge that part for you. It is possible and you're going to do it. But yeah, I feel you when you say it does feel like starting over, because it is hard.
Yeah, I'm not giving up, but it is hard. And it also sometimes feels like you're also, the world has changed so much. Even in the past 6 months, the world has changed. I mean, let's be real. AI is a huge thing. And not only that, I'm not 20 years old. It's like things change so fast that you do feel like that if you don't figure it out like this, that you are behind. And that, and I won't say, why bother? Because I don't feel that way at this point. I'm going to plow through somehow, but it's almost like, it's funny because I use this candy bar marketing when I talk about feet when I'm at workshops, because feet isn't fun to talk about. So to grab people's attention, I'm like using candy like snow caps. I'm from New Hampshire, where all the snow is. But anyway, I have, I grabbed the Good and Plenty box and say there's a good and plenty of information on the internet. And then I have my earheads and I have my Smartie. And I'm like, don't be an earhead, be a Smartie. But you can literally go on the internet and find whatever you want. If you want to find an excuse to cheat on your husband, you're going to find it. It's going to be some like, oh, I don't know if he doesn't play, whatever. You just get my point. There's ways to find whatever you want per scenario. You can find it online. Then there's others that are really looking for answers and getting frustrated by the things maybe they're being told or being dismissed by certain, I don't want to say doctors, practitioners, but it happens. I mean, in the world, or especially in the US, they don't have a lot of time to spend with you. So people are getting more frustrated. They're diving down WMD. Like, it's just all the different things. And it's like, how do you keep up with all of it? And here you are, this little message, listen to me, and I can really tell you and help you understand what your body is telling you. And that has some power to it. But when you're a little tadpole in the world, you feel like your message doesn't matter anymore. I'm not saying I feel that way, but I'm saying it's very easy to feel that way. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I'll add to it, if you don't understand how to do it, just air quotes, understanding, and by right, I just mean understanding the actual startup process and how to translate your skills, your gifts, your genius, all of who you are and be and everything that you hold to the people that you are here on this earth to serve. You are uniquely suited and positioned to help and support. If you don't, anyone, don't understand how to translate that to those people, bridge that back, it's not just that you can feel like your message isn't getting somewhere, but unfortunately it's not. And that's just the hard reality, because there is everything that you said is so true and it's so real. And if you don't know how to do that process, you put stuff out and it does go into the void. If you don't know how to do it, it does go out into this void. And that's why it feels like that, because it's true. It does. If you don't know where it's going, it's just going out. People aren't hearing it. They aren't seeing it, or the right people aren't seeing it. So it may as well be going out to the void, because if it's not connecting with the people that has them be like, that's me, or there's something there. If it's not doing that, then it's going out into this void. And like you said, today more than ever, there's so much noise out there, and there's a lot. That being said, there is a way to do it, but everything that you're saying, it's so true and it's real. It's real. The fatigue, the AI, everything's going to keep changing. And if we don't understand how we're building, why we're doing it, all of these things, it's going to be a really interesting, I would say, even the next 18 months, I think a lot is going to change now with the AI bots and all of that. Like, I think even in the next 18 months, things are going to change. But even from COVID times, life as we knew it for online businesses from COVID times to now is drastically different. That's why there was a lot of business explosion during COVID times that we cannot replicate now, and it's not working. So everything that worked for people during COVID times, if they're trying to teach people how to do it and rinse and repeat, it's not working, because today's consumer, today's online world, today's landscape with AI and everything is so different. Consumers and what it takes to build trust with people it's so different even from COVID times 4-6 years ago. I'm not even going to talk about before COVID times, because that's like a whole different world. But I think people will be looking back after the next 18 to 24 months. I think people will be looking back similar to how we can do that from COVID, because of the drastic changes with AI and the AI bot thingy that's coming up really big right now. I think people in, like I said, 2 years will look back at this time and be like, wow, you couldn't do what you did 2 years ago now, because so much changed. And like you said, it is. If we don't understand where we're headed, why we're headed there, it's like getting slammed, in the waves on the ocean. It's going to keep going. There's nothing we can do about that.
COVID, it's funny you bring COVID out, because COVID, I mean, yeah, a lot of horrible things happened during COVID, but a lot of great things came out of it too. There was a lot of silver linings. There was a lot. I mean, I don't think people actually understood either, because oddly enough, I was shut down. I was a nail tech, right? So I was following rules. I wasn't supposed to be working, and I didn't. And so for a month, I was out of work because I was getting phone calls from the building I'm in right now, actually, calling me saying, Dawn, you got to get back here. We're considering you emergency services because we don't want any more problems with our diabetics' feet. Then we don't know how long this is going to last. And honestly, ironically enough, through this journey, I was having my own things with my own dad. And during COVID, I was made medical DPOA. He was 94. Anyway, he ended up coming to this building. You know what I mean? But I never realized. So for that month, I ended up studying more, because what was I going to do? I couldn't work. So I'm like, all right, more education, because that's who I am. And then someone was like, a business coach was like, Donnie, if you had a program or could show people how to do their feet at home, people couldn't go get pedicures, people couldn't go get manicures. And I never in a million years, Sophie, ever would have thought of bringing a nail business to an online world. So you heard what your COVID was. So I've been trying to do this for a little bit. But going back to what you said, the other thing I wanted to say is I want to compliment you for doing this, because I've had many coaches through this time frame. Okay, COVID was what, 2020, and so it's 2026. So for 6 years, I've been working on getting myself online. I've actually been working on creating my own foot care line, which is now live now too, which is exciting. But it's a lot, and when you have coaches that, meanwhile, I'm not putting anyone down, and I'm not saying they were bad coaches, but there's a dime a dozen now, or a penny a dozen now. Like, and that's not to be mean, but when you're in this type of space, when you're in a holistic, or you're in, and I don't even want to say holistic, but I will say service industry, and you want to bring something online, it is a very different, I feel, in my own experience and journey. I mean, I've spent thousands of dollars and gotten nowhere. Okay. Because that particular coach just wasn't, I feel, for a service industry going online. And especially when you get into the holistic and functional world, because they don't understand that if they've never dealt with it. You know, it's kind of like telling someone who's been through domestic violence, oh, I know how you feel. Well, no, you don't. So it's a very different charter of the seas, I guess. And so when you have coaches that are, oh no, I can help you. It's your messaging. It's the branding. You got to do posting every day or 3 times a day. Well, I have feet in my hands. I'm literally boom, boom. I can't be posting, and then, so it just can be a lot. So I commend you for specifically helping holistic practitioners or people like that, because it really is a different animal than coaching for real estate or coaching for just business. Because every business, yes, we all have businesses, and there's certain things for businesses. But when you have a service-based business and trying to bring it online, or even just a piece of your business online, it is a very different conversation, or I think, or the lack of a better word, process, because I can't think of the word I'm looking for, than it is for all the other types of businesses. And it took me, obviously, a little bit to figure that out. So this year, I finally feel like I've found, so I'm getting somewhere. But that's so true, because you do, like I said, you feel like a tadpole in the Amazon lake or something.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. And I want to add to that I was also you for so many years. I invested thousands, tens of thousands, ultimately, over the years of money into people that said that they could help me with my business.
Me too.
Coaches, consultants, but also providers, ads providers, and marketing people, and branding people. And everyone's like, yeah. It never, ever worked, which is how I even stumbled upon knowing what I now know and how I teach people, because I was that for so many years and I kept investing in it. It didn't work. And well-meaning people, of course, I'm a great judge of character. It wasn't like I was hiring cringy people who, whatever.
Right.
I now know what I know, which is, and I'll give you like a little snippet to give you some context, is very, very, very few people in the world understand the startup process. You have 3 stages of business, generally speaking: startup phase, growth phase, maturity phase. Okay. Until you meet what's loosely called product market fit, what I call offer market match, you are still in the startup phase, which is a normal phase to every startup business.
Mm-hmm.
Normal, you have to get through it. People are treating us all like we're in the growth phase. So they're giving us growth tactics too soon. If you're not actually in the growth phase and you're actually in the startup phase and someone's treating you like in the growth phase, every single penny will unfortunately be wasted, because it's just like bringing soccer gear to a golf match or golf gear to a soccer match. It's not that one's better or worse. It's just, it does not translate. If you don't have product market fit, offer market match, which another way of saying that is laying your vital 5 business foundations to where you get to a certain point where everything's fully validated, you aren't ready to grow. And everyone's giving us growth tactics and it's not doing anything. And again, those tactics might work for someone that has product market fit, but we haven't gotten there yet. Until we've nailed that, for you, a way of saying that will be exactly everything that you already intuitively know in your body, which is, who are your people? How do I find them? What's the message that connects with them? How do I translate what I do into an online business? It's a process. And you go through the process, the startup process. It's all about approaching this with curiosity. There's ways to have a different mindset. A lot of people like mindset. You need abundance mindset. You need money manifestation tools. You have a money block. You have an ancestral block. If you can't actually no, actually
Sorry.
no. Some of those things at a certain point, yes, maybe. But actually, when it comes to the startup phase, no. You do have to have a different mindset, but it's none of those things. Because if you're trying to manifest an abundance and all of this stuff, it's wrong place, wrong time. You're in the search phase, you're in the startup phase. It's all about curiosity. You're looking for data, you're having conversations with people, you're seeking to deeply connect with people, understand your population inside and out. Ask them, have the right conversations, ask the right questions. There's different ways to approach these conversations. You don't want to sell too early. You don't want to tell people, like, it's a whole different thing. Stuff that, again, most of the people now I know out there who are business coaches or giving business advice have no idea about any of this. And that's the main thing that's missing. And that's why everything they tell us to do isn't working. I am way more, and part of why I started this podcast is because not only, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this, but because look at what's happening in the world. Look at what's happening globally. The addiction rates, the suicide rates, the mental health crises, the mass shootings, the hate, the everything that's going on. The work that we all do is vital to supporting the collective and getting through this dark night of the soul, this kind of collective global dark night of the soul. It's so vital. And unless we raise the bar for on the business side, we're not going to get there. So like, I'm not trying to, of course, same with you, call anyone out, but I am also going to say at a certain point, we have to say, hey, everything that you're saying isn't working. Like we need to raise the bar collectively to get the business stuff figured out. We need to be giving better. One of the things that I talk to people about, one of the main things going on is a lot of the business coaches and business advice out there, people aren't diagnosing the problem. They're just giving you new tactics to try without ever saying, this is actually specifically the problem. And the metaphor that relates to that is like bringing your car's not working. You can't get it to start. You bring it into the shop and they just start fixing things without ever diagnosing. No, you would never, a technician wouldn't start fixing without diagnosing. You need the diagnosis first. For us, it's like, yeah, what's the diagnosis? Where's the problem? Where in the engine? Oh, okay, that makes sense. So let's focus on that. They might have 3 levels. So we'll try this first and then this, but you have an understanding of where the problem is. All of us, when it comes to our businesses, are basically going into this metaphorical mechanic shop with no diagnosis. They aren't diagnosing us. We aren't getting a diagnosis. And everyone's just like, try this, fix that. Let's add this bell and whistle. Oh, your engine's not starting? It's okay. Let's just paint the outside. If you just paint the outside, it'll, no, when you think of it in this metaphor, it's like, no, everyone's trying to add a bell and whistle or paint the outside or make this look, when really they're not actually diagnosing the problem. And so then we're spending a lot of time, money, energy, resources into things that aren't the actual problem. And I know that, at least the people that I come across are well-meaning, but also at the same time, we need to raise the bar because we need the work to work. We need the business side of all of our work to work because people need us.
I love how you just use that illustration because it's true. It's funny because that's how I approach feet. So like my workshop, my live workshop I have coming up is actually called, your foot pain is not the beginning of the story. Because from what you just described, going through this journey of figuring out they say avatar, who my perfect client, who my client is and all that. I mean, I really had to go into looking at, everyone has feet. Everyone needs help with feet. People don't understand so much that's happening for decades until the pain sets in. However, to grab someone's attention, it's going to be someone with foot pain. So I finally had to okay, I accept the fact that I'm only going to be able to get people's attention that have foot pain. But it's taken me this long to get to that journey part, like you just said, because here they were just telling me, well, Donnie, you should do this, you should do that. But it wasn't. So what happened, Sophie, what happened is I actually auditioned for a TED Talk this January. And I went in and I was pretty confident, and I was talking about the, basically the mind, body, and soul connection. I used stories of my client of 106 years old. Like I did all the things they say doing a TED talk. And I was passionate and honest about it. I wasn't like, it was all true. And I said, I really just want people to start paying more attention to what their feet are telling them, like their overall awareness is affected, right? And so I did my thing and they asked me lots of questions. And then they said, well, what's your overall message? And that's what I said. I want people to start listening to their feet. So they're looking at, but it wasn't the right audience because on the way out, the woman's like, oh, yeah, well, people with foot fetishes will love this. And I'm like, girl, you did not get the message I was talking about your wellness. And so I have been redoing, like, I'm like, okay, my messaging is really off. So through my journey of coaches I've had this year and workshops I've been in, that's where I came from. But it finally was like, I have to accept the fact that the only way I get people's attention is when they're already in pain. Like before this call, before I came from my emergency client, I had a call from someone who went on my website and like, I don't understand what you do, but this is what's happened. And I've had doctors did this to me. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what I do. And she's like, oh my God, I need to come see you. And I'm like, okay. So she booked an appointment after we got off the phone, but it's because the messaging of when you're in the online world, it's like, how do you draw people in? Right. And they give you so much, I should say but the ones that were not, it's not their authority of being a coach in what we do, I guess. And maybe authority is not the right word, but I say I'm in my authority. But when I approach people about their overall wellness, it's based on their feet. Just what you described about the car, your foot pain, but for 20 years, this has been happening and you've been walking like this and the pressure's here. And I know I'm using my hand signals, but no one can see what I'm doing. But my point is that is absolutely it. Finding the root of the problem to stop just curing symptoms and stop just trying to do a pill for an ill. And I don't diagnose. I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to be. I don't overscope. I don't go out of my scope. But what I do is I help people have awareness. Awareness is wellness. I say that all the time. And basically helping their body understand what it's telling them. So when these coaches are coming at us like cookie cutter, right? There's cookie cutter things, but there's not. Like I'm working with this person one-on-one. You asked me that earlier, but I can still do it in a group setting and things like that. But I'm not doing the masses because everybody has different feet. Everybody has different bio-individuality. Same thing with our businesses. I have 20 years of experience with touching feet. I have the journey I went through with my parents that led me to this, that led me to that. That's not your story. That's not her story. That's my story. And I think that that's where things get lost is how to get the messaging clear that, okay, Susie's teaching this, but this is why, this is what I have to offer. Not to make yourself sound better, but maybe so for me, I love working with the sandwich generation because I was it. I had kids at home and I was taking care of two aging parents. And if you knew the story, it was actually two of 23 years different apart in age, aging parents that you never would have expected it would have went down that way. And so my journey leads me to where I am now, that I can help people even more because I've lived in the situation. I've lived in a domestic situation where my ex-husband almost killed me. And so I know what the stress can do to feet. Like it's all the things. And so when you have that type of messaging, it's like not every coach is going to help you figure out how to get it out there. Does that make sense? And so I love that you said that about the car because that's exactly how I approach feet, figuring out the puzzle pieces of who you are to figure out your puzzle. And that's what coaches really, I think, in our industry need to do. They need to understand like the facets or the matrix of our business before they can start saying, do this. Because no, that doesn't work for someone who is in their 50s, barely on technology, find me a different way to get my message out. You know what I mean? And it took a lot for me to get to that. Obviously, 6 years. So
I do know what you mean, and you're not alone. And it's a problem. It's a problem again, because the cost is huge. The cost, if we aren't figuring out the business side, is huge because the people that we're here to serve, help, support, they can't find us and we can't find them. And that's a problem. So yeah, everything that you said, I get. And the metaphor is real. So I'm glad it's helpful. This is what's happening over and over again. People are bringing their cars into the shop and business coaches are generally painting a new coat or saying, oh, fix the windows or put these bumper stickers on, for lack of a better term. without actually understanding how to diagnose the actual problem and then how to approach it. And like you said, there is no one size fits all. There is absolutely no one size fits all, not just as a cliche saying, but truly, because all that matters when it comes to my expertise is helping people build sustainable businesses, right? So the people I work with, holistic practitioners, coaches, healers, some combination of that, they're generally service providers running mostly online digital businesses. They all have so much in common. And yet still, there's no one size fits all business model because there are lots of factors that go into making that. But because people don't have the distinctions and understanding for actually like the area of expertise that I have, startup building, the actual startup process, all they know is this one thing. We'll try this. So they're going to give you this version. It's going to work for a small fraction of people. The ones lucky enough, that is what their people want and need. And that one actually just happens to work. But it's going to be probably less than 5% of people that they can actually help. And the rest of everyone else, the 95+% of people that come through them, they aren't going to get the results. And again, people are well-meaning, but this is part of what's going on. Again, they don't understand actually the engine, the understanding. And so they can't actually guide people to nailing the perfect business model for some of the reasons that go into that, what you already know intuitively or even consciously, which is you are going to make up a big part of what makes your business successful and sustainable. Who you are, how you show up, what your day is like, what your work day is. So that's one part. Your people, your clients are the other part. Every single thing that's going to make your business model, air quotes, perfect, successful, and sustainable long-term is going to have them at the very center. So who are they? What are their spending habits? What is their budget? What works for them? What platforms do they use? What is the way they communicate? The way that I teach people how to build their businesses is in connection, deep connection with your people. So if you do it right, your people are going to be the center of every single thing that you do with your business, and you, of course, which usually isn't the hard part because we usually have a lot in common with the people that we want to work with, right? But your people are going to be at the very center of every single thing that you do. Why? Because that's what makes it work. So the old way of teaching people how to build businesses is, follow the structure. You need this, and then you need a high ticket offer, and then you need it to look like this. And then go out in the world and try to find your people. And everyone's like, well, I don't know. How do I do that? And whatever. The other way of doing it, the way that I teach people, by the way, that old way of doing it, less than 3% chance of success. So generally speaking, almost no one succeeds with that way of doing it. When you can flip it the other way, that chance of success goes up to 87+% because you approach it building in deep connection. So everything that you do starts with deeply connecting with people, getting to know them inside and out. Some of the stuff I already talked about, having the conversations in the right way, asking the right questions. So you're constantly layering on a piece after you already know that's the answer. How do you know that's the answer? They'll tell you if you know how to ask them the right questions. Does that make sense? So it's like you build in deep connection with your people and you have one offer or version of your business because that's what, through time and deep connection and conversation, you've already validated that. So then that's what you start offering. So you know it's going to work, or you might need small tweaks because they've already told you. You figured it out together. You figured it out on the court. And so instead of spending a lot of time building in isolation, like we call it, even the ideal client avatar is an example of building in isolation. You're trying to come up with things. So it's like, I don't know this, I don't know that. Well, it's a hypothetical situation. There's only so much that you can solve building in isolation. How do you nail it with your ideal client is you start talking to people. Have a conversation with someone. You're like, yes, interesting. I never thought about that. Okay, let me find someone just like that again. And then you're going to have even more rich data. Or you're like, oh, you know what? I thought I could help that type of people. It's not really what I'm into. Or they're not as aware enough. And so nothing's wrong. You just have a conversation with another person. So then you're approaching it that way and you're piecing it together. And every single stage of building is so rich with real data. So it's more of building the puzzle and solving that problem in real time rather than the old way of doing things, which is build this thing in isolation. Now go out into the world, into the void, and try to find people to match it. It's almost impossible, which is why the success rate is less than 3%. But when you build this other way, it's rich. It's a different way of building because you're never getting to a point where you now have to go find people. You're finding people first and foremost. Like that's your number one goal when you first start. You find them. Then you start building that way. So every piece of building, it's rich, it's data rich, it's more approaching with curiosity. And like I said, piecing the puzzle together and understanding, of course, it still takes time. But through that time, your chance of success becomes almost inevitable because each layer, it's already validated. Then you're fine tuning and you're getting closer and you're nailing it more and you're delivering dream outcomes. In every step that you take, even though it still might take time, it's going to take a year or more than that sometimes. You're so close. You get closer every step, if that makes sense. So it's so rich. It gets exciting because you're like, oh, yes. Like I feel like this, instead of like building for 2 years or 6 years like you've done, and then you're probably still looking around being like, I don't feel any closer generally than I was 6 years ago because I still don't know where the people are anyway, all these different things. But yes, I totally get everything that you're saying. And yes, people don't understand. They don't know some of this stuff. And it's leading us into this problem of, again, what the only thing I ultimately care about at the end of the day, personally, which is that more people are finding their people because that's what we need.
And I love that because what you just described has been me for, like I said, this year things have finally been coming together. But that's why realizing that, with the clients I work on, they find me because they're in foot pain, or they find me because they realize things are changing, or they want a better care for their feet because of the physical services. But in the conversations I've had, so I was doing some market research and I literally just recorded our conversation. I just had a conversation and then I sent it to ChatGPT because I was curious. And then it sent back, Dawn, do you realize how powerful this is? Do you realize and because we get stuck in our mode, especially with someone who's been doing this for so long. I just want to help people that I don't realize what my help actually helps. Like, so some of the comments I would get, like, oh, when you told me this, I went home and I couldn't get it out of my mind. Not even the thing that I thought that they should have got out of the conversation, but that's what they got out of the conversation that led them to go do changes at home. Okay, well, I'm happy about that. You know what I mean? But it took me to realize that. And so, like I said, the messaging and realizing that the sandwich generation, because those ladies were at least in our 50s or more. But, you said earlier about how we're seeing more mental problems. We're seeing more of this. We're seeing more of that. I'm passionate about it because I see in assisted living homes and memory care units and people at age 50 are getting dementia. This is not normal stuff that was happening years ago, but I understand a lot of that messaging from the foot to the brain, why this is happening, and like more neuropathy, like all the things, right? But to get people's attention, someone with pain. That's how they get me. It's like, I'm like prevention is protection. I love teaching prevention, but that doesn't matter because I'm not going to get to those people. I can help the people that are in pain or that are worried about being able to walk when they're 80. But it took me 5 years to figure out this messaging, but it really has changed things. But I like how you said it can get exciting having these conversations because I have these conversations live. I have these conversations in networking groups I'm in. I have these conversations. So for me, I'm like, what's so different about just getting it out in the real world? But I wasn't looking at it that way. You know what I mean? So I love that you share that. And I do agree that that is where the disconnect is. If we're healers or we're in the service industry, we want to serve and bless others. So just have a conversation, but we make it too hard.
We weren't taught it. And most of the business advice out there, yeah, it isn't working, especially not for us. And that's part of why we're missing the mark. So it's the good news for us is that the way to do it well actually is more aligned with who we be. The things that I said, deep connection, real conversations, real people, real pain, real problems. All of that is actually fundamental and central to navigating the startup process really well. And it's the stuff that we're already all really good at. So it actually is a good thing. Now it's a matter of raising that awareness and having more people aware and getting that out there because people just don't know. And business building, it's not intuitive actually in terms of navigating the startup process. and how to actually nail it, especially when we're service providers and we want to be spending time with our people. So yeah. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up today?
No, I thank you again for having me. Totally different conversation than what I'm used to. I think it's amazing. And I think, like I said, I think it's very impressive what you're doing to change the world. I'm trying to change feet one soul at a time, but, and you're trying to change holistic businesses, and that's what they need. So thank you again for having me.
Dawn, thank you so much for joining me today to have this conversation. And for those of you who are listening, if any part of this resonated, you're in the right place, please reach out. I want to hear from you. And if you want to reach Dawn directly, the link to join her for her next workshop is in the show notes. Thank you again, Dawn. And to everyone else, thank you for listening. And we'll see you for the next episode of Ren Behind the Practice.